Young boy, you done me bad, so women did you wrong. Young boy, you done me bad, so women did you wrong. I got high, high, high. Lord, I got high. I got a bone to pick with you, and I'm sure you know it's true. Oh, one day when you're looking back, you were young and man, you were sad. When you're young, you get sad.
All right, welcome to episode 10 of the Small Truck Campers podcast. I am so thrilled you're joining me on this episode. It's going to be an awesome episode. We have a really cool guest coming on the show here that I'm sure you'll be excited to hear about. And just want to say thanks so much for tuning in, for following along on the Instagram, on the podcast, being active. It's such a cool community we've built. And I've said this before that, we don't have any followers. We only have people that participate. We have participators because each one of you guys out there helps participate and build this community up. And as I've realized, and as you might have realized, there's a whole ton of people that are into what we're into. And when I first started this thing out, I didn't know that. I thought maybe I was the only one. Maybe I was crazy. But lo and behold, there's a whole community out there that, to this day, I'm getting rig pics that just blow my mind with what people are building and the materials they're using. And it's just super cool. The adventures they're going on, etc. And this podcast serves as a platform to kind of share those stories, share those tips and tricks, share those techniques for building, and keep inspiring and kind of keep the momentum going. So just want to say thank you for following along and being a part of it and continuing to build out this community. In Small Truck Campers world, we don't have a ton of news to pass. Currently, we are doing our giveaway for a hoodie, new hat, koozie, some stickers, and a patch. Be sure to check out some of our Instagram posts. It's so easy to enter. All you got to do is go to any Instagram post that we've ever made and comment the word equipped, as in equipped to rip. I'll spell it out for you. That's how easy it is. EQUIPPED. Go out there and just comment on any one of our posts and then check your DMs. We'll notify the winner on Thanksgiving, and we will make a formal announcement on that same day as well. And it's going to be awesome to kind of get some gear out there. And so far we've had about 100 entries, which I'm impressed by, and that means there's some pretty good chances. And I think that with some awesome designs we have on the back burner that are slowly getting made in terms of apparel and stuff, there's definitely some more giveaways to be had. So it's fun to give stuff away, and I'm stoked because it gets the community stoked, and that's kind of what it's all about. So be sure to enter that giveaway. Like I said, we'll draw the winner on Thanksgiving, and we'll make the formal announcement either Thanksgiving or the day after. Let's see here. I posted a Instagram the other day. Let me see if I can find it. It was a reel. It was talking about how people stay warm in their camper. And I just want to read some of the answers because they're pretty funny and they're pretty unique and they're all really good tips. So let's see here. We got a lot of votes for the mini wood stove. That was really cool. I am slightly alarmed with having a fire burning in my camper, but I think for those really cold days and nights, it's definitely doing the trick as long as you design it right. I know that the Truck House Alive guy has a wood stove, and it seems to be working pretty good for him, and he's up in Alaska. And let's see, out here in Quebec, I've been in negative 43 degrees, and my wood stove has kept me warm for 3 years now. So that's pretty sweet. Lots of wins for the diesel heater crew, especially the Chinese diesel heater crew. I feel like it's the lowest barrier to entry. It's the cheapest, and it also is probably the warmest. The issue you're going to run into there is it's finicky unless you kind of know exactly what you're doing. Not saying they're all finicky, but I've had my run-ins with them, and they work great about 80% of the time. And to me, it seems like 20% of the time when you need that heat, either they're clogged up, there's soot buildup, or the fuel pump's not working properly, or it's just not calibrating correctly due to the altitude. But a lot of wins for the diesel heater crew. Let's see here. Wiggy's bag and Llama light boots and hot tea. Hashtag Wiggy's sleeping bags. Okay, I dig it. Definitely just get down to the basics with a good sleeping bag, some good boots, and some hot tea. Grow the beard out. Yes, that's a good one for men and women alike. Definitely keeps your face warm. Chinese diesel heater, 0 degree bag, my buddy heater, and when it's real cold, find a cheap hookup site and take the camper off and use the furnace. Take the truck out on day hikes and adventures. Okay, getting off topic a little bit, but I like it. Olympian Wave 3 propane heater gets the job done. I agree. I think these things are super simple and they sip the propane, and I think the Olympia Wave 3 is a solid solution. Hot water bladders for small rigs. Good idea. I didn't think of this one. Jenny. Nice. Don't even know what that means, but whatever. Cheap Chinese diesel heater, 3 days, maintaining a temperature of 65 with 2 gallons. So easy and super warm. Highly recommend. Diesel heater. Hot water bottle, the grandma rubber kinds. Not sure what that means, but good tip. Follow the weather. Snowbirds. Okay, yeah, follow the weather, I guess, but if you're like, my weather usually takes me into like snowstorms or like coastal storms to either score snow or score waves, so it doesn't really work for everybody. Diesel heater / wood stove. Dry heat always. Put in enough time with a shitty buddy heater to each their own. Diesel heater changes the game. Thanks, Chop Nate. You've been a long time follower. I want to give a shout out to you. Heating blanket. Okay, yeah, if you got the battery power for it. Diesel heater all the way. Reflectix for the windows. Fan to blow the heat off the ceiling to keep more consistent temperature from top to bottom. That's a pretty dialed setup right there, I must say, from T Comfy. Long Johns. I mean, duh. Not duh, but like, that's a solid move. Just the Long Johns. That's all I need. Another shout out to Wiggies. I'll have to look into them because I haven't heard of them until I started reading these just now. I sure wish buddy heaters were reliable in the cold. Pilot light consistently goes out, even after cleaning and maintenance. Half the time I can't even start it. I agree. The buddy heater is great when you can get that thing going. And I bought one a year or two ago on Craigslist. Used. I cleaned that thing out like crazy and still would only light like after like 30 attempts. But when it did light, it stayed warm as heck. So if you want a cheap portable option, I'd say buddy heater's the way to go. Here's an interesting one. Alcohol. Nothing keeps you warmer when you're 6 feet plus sleeping in a 5-foot bed with your feet hanging out. Yeah, put on the alcohol jacket. It might not hold you through the night, but it might get you at least to snooze. A cubic wood stove, cubic mini wood stove, lots of bedding layers. 0 degree. There's some fun. I can't read all these because, I don't know, they're just so funny. You have to go and check out these comments, though. They're pretty hilarious. Dogs. Dogs are a great way to stay warm. And I would say they're the cheapest route, but I'd say they're the most efficient. They don't take much fuel, and they also offer companionship and comfort. Shivering. Shivering is my natural response. That's how I stay warm. Shivering is a natural response to stay warm, and I think it's pretty funny. But shivering usually isn't the best way to stay warm. It's an indicator that you need to warm up. Taking out my propane furnace, putting in a diesel heater, and installing a cubic mini wood stove. All right. That's from E. Bucks Reed, and we have a double, 2 systems in there, diesel heater and a wood mini stove. Do you guys think you need 2 heating systems, or are you content with just one? I'm content with one. Tell me what you think, though. Slept in -10 in my Tacoma camper with Reflectix. Had a heated mattress pad with a heated blanket going all night off an EcoFlow Delta. Ran a 200-watt little space heater in the morning to warm things up a bit. Dialed. Very dialed. The guy knows the wattage he needs, and he's got the EcoFlow portable battery to sustain it. And there's definitely some math equations going on there for him, but he figured it out. Not a bad move. Not a bad move. Another. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but Dickinson propane heater. I mean, those things are super popular too. The barrier to entry there is the price point, but they seem to be super popular. And aesthetically, they're just super pleasing, Dickinson propane heater and installing a cubic mini wood stove. Redundancy is key. So that's a few people now that are on the double redundancy train, and maybe they've had some bad experiences and they're scared, but I commend you. If you want to throw 2 heating elements in there, then go for it. I took 2-inch foam board insulation and cut it to fit floor joists. Then fit foam board panels around the lower tub. Sealed all gaps with expanding foam spray. Inside has insulated vinyl plank flooring and Reflectix insulation for windows vents held with Velcro. Setup withheld sub-zero temps in AK, Alaska. Only crippler is the propane heat source versus diesel/wood heat. Yes, that is the crippler. And that was the question is, what are you using? Let's see here. Burning credit card bills keeps me warm. Yes, thanks Maxwell. Shout out. And I guess the more credit card bills you have, the warmer you'll stay. So spend. Diesel heater for the poor man. They work very well. If I had the money to get a propane furnace, I'd say diesel heater for the rich man as well. 200-watt ceramic heater has worked for us in temps lower 30s. It runs about 3 hours over the night. Keeps the camper in low 60s, though the camper is small. Diesel heater. All right. Made it through the Alcan in our Tacoma ARE high-rise camper shell and a Brenergy lithium battery powering an inverter to electric blanket in between our multiple sleeping bag layers, unzipped like blankets. Preheating that and using Reflectix on the windows kept us really toasty. It was 20 degrees Fahrenheit and blanket was on low. Barely used any battery and then recharged the next day while driving. Looking forward to testing in more extreme temperatures. Yeah, I'd be interested too to hear how that goes. And if you can, like I said, figure out the wattage that is required, the watt hours, I think it'd be pretty dialed setup with the battery. Let's see. Double wide, 0 degree sleeping bag, down booties, and 2 and 4-legged heater usually does the trick. I like to leave a pair of clothes and sweater in my bag at night. The dog lays on them and warms them up. I used a Mr. Buddy and turned it on for a few minutes, only when it got cold. It worked great in a bigger drafter rig, but way too much condensation and not enough clearance in the cap. And then my favorite comment from Ultimo Coyote. Dang, I'm unfollowing this hipster BS. That's fine. You don't have to follow. No one's forcing you to. And that's just a great comment. I appreciate the response. Thank you for participating. Telegram Sam23 said giant piles of down. So, those are the comments from that post. Super good response. Super funny. And I lost track of my thoughts. Super funny to read those. I love the participation when I post those reels, so feel free to answer them. And more questions will be posed, and then hopefully we can answer those on future podcasts. So yeah, staying warm is key. Lots of ways to do that. And it seems like you can go the cheap route, which would probably be blankets or a sleeping bag, which, I mean, they're not that cheap, but that seems like the most longevity, low maintenance system to imply. Or you can go the Dickinson propane heater or wood stove or the combo. And it's just interesting to see how many people are staying warm and in what degree, how cold you're able to stay warm in these campers. It's pretty cool. It's definitely a barrier to like doing some more extreme traveling, like up to Alaska, but be advised there are plenty of ways to stay warm and just do what's right for you. That's what it's all about. So loved hearing that. Looking forward to asking more questions and getting more responses from that. All right, so not a whole lot to cover right now. I actually am going to go straight on into introducing our guest. And she opened up with a cool quote that she didn't say this. She said this quote, but it's not her quote. The reward for conformity is that everyone likes you except yourself. The reward for conformity is that everyone likes you except yourself. That might have to be a sticker or a t-shirt, and I got to find out who said that, because that to me sums up what we're all about. We have gone this separate way. We've chosen this kind of, I don't know, practical, minimalist lifestyle that fits us, and I think that we're all really happy and stoked with where we're at. And we've chosen not to exactly maybe conform 100%, but just that quote just kind of really, really like struck me and kind of just set the tone. Kind of is, I don't know, it just hit me really hard. So the reward for conformity is that everyone likes you except yourself. So I just hope out there that you're following your heart, you're following your passion, and you're doing what you like to do. be it in a small truck camper, be it in a condo, be it in a house, be it in a van, whatever it is. I just hope that you're fulfilling your own personal destiny and living your life the way you want it to be. And that could even be, your goal is to reach a certain point, and right now you're looking at the big picture, which is kind of the boat I'm in, working the full-time job. But I'm also dreaming and scheming for that one day when I can fully embrace the lifestyle, which I've gotten to do in the past and I'm hoping to get back to in the future. But, it takes sacrifice to do that, and it takes dedication, and it's very difficult to do, but that's a really good quote. So that was mentioned by our guest who is coming on the podcast here shortly, and I'll introduce her. Dakota Ray, also known as Little Rig, has been living out of her small truck camper for the past few years. She got started right around COVID times and grew up in a somewhat alternative lifestyle, living in vans down in Mexico with her family or on a sailboat up in the British Columbia, Vancouver Island area. And it was cool to connect with her and have a conversation about how she got started, kind of her inspiration, her build out of her rig, her travels, and what her future plans are. So without any further ado, I'd just like to introduce Dakota and welcome her to the podcast. And I hope you enjoy our conversation that we have. Yeah. So I guess we can kind of just start because why not? So we're here live with Dakota Ray calling in from Princeton, British Columbia. Is that correct? You're in Princeton right now?
That is correct. I'm just on the road right now. So I was in a different town earlier today, and I'll be in Vancouver later.
Awesome. How far is that drive? I was looking on a map. It seems like it might be kind of far.
From Princeton to Vancouver?
Yeah.
It's only a couple hours, 2.5-ish, maybe closer to 3, depending on traffic, and I drive in the rig. So yeah, it's not too bad, but I'm taking about 3 days to do like an 11-hour drive.
Oh, okay.
Where I was a couple days ago to where I'm headed.
Awesome. Where were you a few days ago?
Yeah. I was in a place called Grey Creek. It's on the east shore of Kootenay Lake, close to the interior of BC. And then I'm heading to Pemberton, which is sort of near Whistler. That
Okay.
familiar at all? Yeah.
So yeah, I've been up to Whistler. So Dakota Ray, also known as Little Rig, and I've been living out of your rig now for how long here? A couple years?
Yeah, it's been about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. How's it all going?
it's going great. I see no end in sight. I love it. I love this lifestyle so much. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So just for our listeners here, let's just give a little backstory. Kind of your upbringing seemed pretty unique. You mentioned that you kind of were doing the van life thing with your as a young grom down in Mexico, and then some sailboat action up in the Pacific Northwest. So
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear kind of your upbringing and what led you to kind of where you're at now.
So yeah, definitely had a bit of a unique childhood. We did have a little stint of van life down in Baja. And I was about 6 years old. Did a winters down there, drove down in an old Ford Econoline van with my parents and my little brother, 2 years younger. So we were definitely young kids. So I have a lot of like my first memories are kind of van life in Mexico, living off the beach. And yeah, so that was a cool adventure. My parents are definitely adventurers. My mom, especially, that was like a big part of what she wanted to do. And we also didn't have a lot of money. We were I was supposed to be starting school. My mom didn't know where she wanted to live exactly, where she wanted to put me into school. So that whole journey with the van life was kind of just like taking a break, trying to figure out where she wanted to root the family. And yeah, we didn't have a ton of money and it was just cheaper basically to go live in Baja for a winter than try and find a place to rent in Canada through the winter and all of that. So that was kind of my introduction to van life, I guess.
Interesting. So
back in the 90s.
yeah, that's awesome. Did you grow up in Princeton, or like what part of Canada did you grow up at?
No, I am just passing through Princeton. I really like it around here, but I'm like I said, I'm on the road right now, so this is a town where I knew I'd have good cell reception because this area has very spotty cell reception. So it's a little waypoint right now for me. So yeah, when we left Baja, we were actually in the interior BC, very close to where I am coming from. Although I did not grow up there, I spent my early childhood in the interior BC near Nelson, a little town called Queens Bay, or a little area called Queens Bay, and then booted down to Mexico at that point when we were looking to find a new place to live. There wasn't any good schools around that Nelson area that my mom wanted to send kids to. So did that Baja trip, came back and moved on to my uncle's sailboat and continued. We basically just sailed around the west coast of British Columbia looking for a place to live.
Wow.
And as luck would have it, we were sailing by Salt Spring Island through Ganges Harbor there. I think we were motoring at the time, actually, and our motor gave out. We got towed into Ganges Harbor on Salt Spring Island and never left. Where I went to school is basically like where the most of my childhood was spent. Pretty nice.
Wow, that's awesome. So definitely a lot of experience in small spaces with a few people. And I'm sure that's translated into kind of your rig now and being so comfortable in, like a 50 or 100 square foot spot. That's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did your parents like? Obviously they were interested in like alternative lifestyles, such as like, living in Mexico, kind of in the van and living on the sailboat. Did they like have any specific trade or any specific like line of work that they were interested in doing when you were growing up?
My dad, when I was growing up, my dad was in the film industry. He was a stunt double. So he was actually gone a lot. So a lot of that trip in Baja was actually just my brother and I with my mom sitting on the beach waiting for my dad to come back from work in mostly Vancouver area where he did a lot of his work. And that was another part of the reason why we moved to the coast, just to be closer to Vancouver, where he was working a lot. He's out of the industry now. But that was actually a big part of why we were moving around quite a bit, was being away so much. And
Awesome. That's an interesting career choice for sure.
yeah. And my mom during that time was just a stay-at-home mom, and later went into she does massage and body work and stuff like that. But,
Awesome.
yeah.
Super cool. So fast forward a few years, you're living in Salt Spring Island, British Columbia, and you said you had bad luck with some of your vehicles, and I'm sure that segues into getting your current truck and your current rig. So I'd love to hear more just about that whole process and kind of what you were going through and what kind of ultimately led you into like kind of taking this lifestyle approach instead of maybe the traditional like apartment 9 to 5 job kind of approach.
Yeah. So I've owned like a ridiculous amount of vehicles from, the first vehicles I've owned. I just had terrible luck. I had awful luck. I've had 2 cars like break in half. I had a pickup truck of mine. The chassis snapped just behind my driver's seat at one point. As I'm driving along, I had a little Chevy Blazer that like one of the wheels just completely fell off as I was driving along. The front axle just snapped.
Yeah, that's definitely.
There's kind of experiences that I've been through, and that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. So, previous to this truck that I have now, I had a Pathfinder, which I did a bunch of car camping in, and I loved that, and really wanted to get into a rig. And I ended up buying these. I think I sent you pictures of it. It's a Toyota S10. They're called a Santana, so it's old. I think it was an 83 or an 82. Did I just say Toyota S10? It's a Chevy S10.
Yeah.
With like this little pop-up camper on the back. It wasn't like a full pop-up. It was just like a
wedge.
Wedge. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was so excited on that. Like it was kind of gutted on the inside and sort of like a nice space where I could make it my own because I wanted to renovate it and build it out. But the engine on that thing, I could not get that darn truck to run. Like
Really?
endless carburetor issues. Yeah. So ended up getting rid of that one and found the pickup. after that. And it took me a while. I had the truck for a few years before I went ahead and built the camper. But this truck has, yeah, it's just been a godsend after all of the sagas of vehicle issues. Over the years, I landed this awesome little Toyota, and it has done me so good.
Yeah, totally. So let's bring the listeners in, and why don't you just let us know what kind of truck you're currently in, and then we can go into kind of the camper build, and we'll keep going. This is awesome.
So, so I have an '89 Toyota pickup. That's just what it's called. It's a 6-cylinder, 3-liter, 4x4, standard locking hub, super basic under the hood, but I love it for that because it's just easy to work on, it's cheap to work on, parts are easy to find, and yeah, it's been so reliable. I always hate talking about how reliable it is because then I feel like I'm going to jinx it, but so far, I've owned this truck for about 7 or 8 years, and so far it's been great. So yeah, like even on this last trip I just did down to Baja and back, did almost around 10,000 kilometers, and I replaced my starter. That was it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is it a manual or is it automatic?
Yeah. No, it's manual for sure.
Oh, even better.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's
I've
killer.
driven manual, like almost every vehicle I've owned has been a manual, and I'm actually like a little nervous driving automatic. I mean, there's not enough things to do. I'm really good at like just mashing my foot into the floor, going to a stop sign, or like throwing it into neutral as I'm rolling up to an intersection.
Yeah, totally.
I much prefer the standard. I like to, and especially these old trucks, like I like to feel like the gears clunking and everything moving and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I agree. I've preferred manuals when I can. Yeah, then you hop on automatic or like a regular car. And, like your left foot is like doesn't have anything to do, you know? Like trying to press a
Yeah.
clutch. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate. That's funny. So you had the Santana, and Santana was made by Toyota, and I have seen a few S10s, and it's kind of
Okay.
that same era as like the Mirage. The man, there's a few like of those rigs floating around. They're super unique. But that probably did that give you the inspiration to build a camper on the Toyota pickup, or how did that kind of idea come about? Where were you at, like, in terms of, like, physical, like, location and, like, mental, like, spot? Like, you wanted to get on the road more? Or, like, kind of what were you thinking
Mhm.
going into this build?
So I went into this build sort of, well, I decided to build it right before COVID hit, and I wasn't really sure if I was gonna get it done immediately. I just was sort of in the dreaming phase, and then COVID hit, and I was like, all right, let's go, let's put it together. My work obviously was slowing down, not a ton. I was landscaping at the time, which is kind of like why I got the truck. I had a little landscaping business and was doing that full time, so I needed the pickup. Kind of got that, and then yeah, as time went on, was kind of looking at vans, like really just wanted to be on the road, and was kind of playing with the idea of building something for my truck. Was looking at campers too, but being on the West Coast where I was, I just found it really, really hard to find anything that didn't feel like it was full of mold that was in my price range. And then plus with my truck, like it's slim pickings and what can really fit on
Yeah.
this. And I had like my basic needs. Like I wanted to be able to stand up in it, and I wanted to be able to cook, and have like a really livable, functional space. And that was it was so limited.
Yeah. Especially up in Canada, there's not a whole lot of inventory floating around, I feel like, compared to the States. Like,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah. And
campers.
what's out there, it's so rough, especially on the coast. I just found everything was musty and moldy.
Yeah.
Even like the newer, yeah, it's so hard. So with the construction of the campers, often it's something that's a little bit unavoidable after a few years. So yeah, we decided to just go ahead and build. My brother, so more of the reason why I decided to actually build is because I had a ton of help. My brother builds tiny homes for a living, and my father now, since he finished his work in the film industry, he now builds homes and does home renovations and all of this. I had a ton of help and access to all the tools and all of that, and also like salvageable building materials. I tried really hard to keep this on a low budget and salvage as much as I can, which is kind of well, yeah,
Awesome. So you had some good help. You felt the urge to hit
yeah,
the road. COVID hit. That was kind of the catalyst to get out there. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
lo and behold, your brother and father are super handy with a hammer and a saw. So you're able to smash this thing together. It looks great from the photos I've seen. And if you want to just walk through the listeners, kind of the build process and, did you flatbed the truck? I can't tell from the photos. It looked like it.
Yeah, so when I originally built it, my truck was like totally stock. It had the box on, and I built it as a slide-in.
Okay.
It's built out of 2x2 framing. I can't remember exactly what thickness the plywood is, but 2x2 framing, plywood over that, rigid insulation, and then fiberglass on the outside.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that was the original build. I lived in that for about a year and a half, and trying to get my timeline right here. And then last winter, I renovated it. So I brought it back to Salt Spring. I've been living in Alberta, and yeah, that was when we flat decked the truck. So it is a flat deck now, and then built out those sides. So instead of having those side cuts where the truck would slide in to the regular bed, I framed those down, and they are now like hatches. So it's access hatches. One is exterior access. The other one opens as well. It's kind of hard to explain, but then I have interior access drawers on that side of the truck, if
Perfect.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super handy because you can obviously like put stuff in on the outside, then access it from the inside. And if
Awesome.
you time it right, then you don't need it. Yeah. You don't need to go outside in the cold and get to those cubbies. You can just reach them
Mhm,
from the inside. So
mhm.
yeah, that's definitely something valuable there.
Yeah,
So
it's just so much more storage and stuff. The one side is like my garage, I call it,
yeah,
tools and extras and things like that. And yeah, just a ton more storage. Amazing
yeah,
because the camper is tiny.
yeah,
This is a small truck, so don't have a ton of storage.
yeah. And I'm sure like when you're building it, your two biggest worries were probably like heat retention because you just mentioned Alberta, which I've never been, but I've seen photos and doesn't look tropical. And
Oh no, the winters are they're real, like
mm,
-30.
yeah, is
Yeah,
that Celsius?
yeah.
Yeah, it's freezing. So you got that issue, and then you got obviously the pickup truck. Those things are sturdy and powerful, but they can't handle like a full ton of weight. So I'm sure keeping
Mhm.
the weight down wasn't an issue you were trying to work with building this thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So I'm very happy with the insulation. I've got 2.5 inches of rigid insulation on the wall and 3 in the ceiling and floor. So I find it is very, very well insulated, which has been great. And then beyond that one, oh yeah. Oh wait,
Wait.
yeah. This thing renovated now that I've added the extra weight is just under 900 pounds empty. So super light.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's awesome. And how's the truck handle it?
Pretty well. I noticed at higher elevations, like when I was in Alberta, going up hills and stuff, I definitely lose quite a bit of power. And yeah, just hills can be tough for the most part. And then I just drove slow. Like I don't really like to go above 80. I find that after that, it just really like eats into my fuel consumption. And then the other thing that can be kind of tough is just wind.
Yeah,
When I drove down to Baja, I had some terrible wind. I know there's tons of stories from last winter, sort of spring, down the Baja Peninsula, just how bad the wind got, and it was gnarly. Like had the pedal on the floor, gas pedal on the floor, going downhill with the headwind barely doing 60 because there was so much. Like, and there was moments where I literally like felt like I was losing steering in big gusts that were lifting the camper up and the truck.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Yeah,
that
the
was a bit of a
sailing.
journey. The wind, yeah, yeah.
Wild.
But other than that, I'm happy with it. It's an old truck. You can't expect it to just be like burning around everywhere at top speed. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, road truck, fast out.
there you go. Yeah, I love it. Classic. What heating solution have you come up with to keep that thing warm aside from insulation?
I have a Dickinson here. If I turn my camera, you can see it. It's
Sure.
pretty unique. They're out of Richmond, BC. They're marine heaters. So that's it right there. It's on. The flame is really small, but
Okay, yeah, I can
there
see
you
it
go.
flickering.
Yeah, and I love it. I had a Chinese diesel heater when I was in Alberta, and that was great when it worked,
Yeah.
and it was awful in the middle of the night and -30 when it stopped working and I had to go outside. I swear to this day, I could probably blindfold myself, take that thing apart, clean it, put it back together,
Yeah.
completely blindfolded. Like, yeah. And then just looking into it, I had friends that had the Webasto, the S-Bar. They're in the same price range as the heater I have now. And I just, they still did the same thing. They weren't as bad as the Chinese diesel heaters, but they had problems. They throw at toads. And, I wanted something that I felt was
Yeah.
totally reliable.
Yeah.
And it's robust. Like I said, they're built, they're created for sailboats, they're marine heaters. So, I can turn the flame on and go drive down the highway and it's totally safe and fine. They're, very well manufactured.
Perfect.
In my experience so far, completely reliable. So I'm very happy with it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, because I posted something on Instagram the other day, like what do people? I was just curious to hear what people are using to keep warm because I've had a similar experience with the Chinese diesel heater where they work great like 80% of the time,
Mhm.
but like when you need them the most, you're either cleaning them or like restarting it constantly or troubleshooting it. And I got some pretty funny replies, which I talked about earlier in this podcast episode.
Okay.
But the general consensus is, yeah, diesel heater for the win, and then the Dickinson's heater unit like close second because just
Yeah.
just the,
Yeah.
the barriers to entry with prices, like $150 American or $1,000 American, and a lot of people are on tight budgets, so I think that's why. But is that thing propane?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What other appliances are powered by propane there in your camper?
Everything. So I have a 2-burner stove with an oven, and that's not propane as well. And then I just run a Yeti cooler right now. I don't have a fridge, which is the next upgrade. I'm so ready for like an actual fridge freezer situation. I'm just very limited on space, but at this point, the Yeti works fine. Even at this time of year right now, because of how it's set up and like how the heat sort of radiates around here, I actually like barely ever have to put ice in it. I can kind of like buy cold things and put them in there, and it's staying totally fine, even while still being warm in the camper.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what are you doing for electricity? Do you have like a solar setup or a battery setup, or what's that look like?
Yeah, I have both. My solar is actually not connected. I had a little electrical fire when I was in Baja, so there's some elements that are not completely like reconnected and everything. I don't know. It's a bit of a scary moment, but yes, I do have 100 watts of solar on the roof, and that helps. I mean, I really don't run a lot of power either. My light, and then there's a tiny little fan on the Dickinson, and then my sink pump. That's pretty much all I have
Yeah.
for electrics, and then I can just charge, my computer and phone from that. It, with I also have a house battery as well, so have my engine battery, and then that charges my house battery when I drive, and then the solar would also charge that battery.
Super minimalist. That's awesome. I'm glad it's working though. That's
Yeah.
all you need.
It is all I need. Like if I were to get once I do decide to go ahead and upgrade to like a fridge, I'll probably be putting another solar panel up there. But I have
Yeah.
space for it. That's totally fine. I've been getting away with the basics right now, and it's been all I need.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. So before we talk about your adventures down south, because on your Instagram profile says BC to Baja, which I thought was pretty sweet. I think it's on the little profile, which kind of sums it up. I actually saw a sweatshirt the other day. I live in Santa Cruz, and it said Santa Cruz County, like conveniently located between Baja and British Columbia. I was like, that's so funny. Yeah, it's so cool. How are you kind of like, are you on your Instagram profile? It said you're like a digital creator. So are you in like the YouTube space or like the podcast space or like graphic design space? I'm just kind of curious, kind of how you're like making this all work for you.
Yeah, I'm not making it work.
Oh,
I'm
perfect.
pretty terrible at Instagram, honestly. Yeah, when I started, just I started that account in the spring, like right before I left for Bravo. I think I started it in like March last year. And because like just in my travels and stuff, you'd run into people. I can barely even park in a parking lot without having people like come up, and I give parking lot tours constantly, just coming in from buying groceries and whatnot. And people are always, oh, like, I want to follow your adventures. So that's why I started the Instagram and did have the intention at that point of making a YouTube as well. Which I still may do at some point. I've just found that it's so not my cup of tea, really. I mean, I don't
Totally.
mind snapping pictures here and there, but making that such a huge part of my day, which I was finding you probably kind of have to do and planning a lot around that. I just didn't have the patience and, for the filming, let alone the editing process, which is for me like pulling teeth.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
I have little moments of inspiration here and there, but I kind of just leave it like to that right now. I'm not really keeping to any kind of schedule or, making myself post on a regular basis a few days in a row. And sometimes when I won't post for like 2 weeks. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I fluctuate on my inspiration with that whole scene. But, it's kind of interesting though, because like now as I have that page to kind of look back on as my own little like memory bank, I do really enjoy having all of that documented. And I think probably if I did start a YouTube, the end result would, make me pretty happy. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm also not traveling full time right now. I know I am on the road today, but it's kind of just a short little stint as it happens, as I'm switching locations and starting a new job here in the next few days. So I just don't feel like my lifestyle is like totally, I feel like I would be scrambling to create content,
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
But
What?
we'll see. I'm not writing it out.
Yeah. What job are you going to? Like, what are you kind of doing in between to kind of fund these adventures?
Yeah. So I work with horses. I'm going to a job where I'll be starting colt. So getting on young horses for the first time.
And like breaking them in or
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun. Yeah.
It's kind of the classic like ranch rig, just like kind of park outside the ranch, work on horses, and then retire. It's
Yeah.
like the kind of the classic, especially like Capri campers with like the whole rodeo scene. And
Yeah.
I see so many like truck campers pulling a horse trailer. It's just kind of like it's definitely, we have one segment with like surfing, mountain biking, snowboarding, etc. And I think that's like a whole nother segment, like the rodeo, like horse equestrian crew. They're
Yeah.
doing it in the
Yeah.
brand new Bighorn, but
Oh,
it's cool to see.
yeah. Yeah. No, that is very much kind of what I've been up to for the last few years with that. Just, bopping around. I was guiding in Kananaskis out in the Rockies just that summer, and yeah, just wherever the work pops up. And I'm a restless person. I live in my rig. I like to be able to be a little bit nomadic. So yeah, right now it's just like a few months at a time. This will probably take me through winter here, and then no plans beyond that yet. So we'll see.
That's awesome. Do you have any people that inspire you that like kind of that you like look forward to hearing from or like watching on YouTube or checking out their Instagram or because a few people come to mind when you talk about
Yeah,
living your rig there. So I'm just curious if you got anybody that inspires you to kind of keep going.
yeah. Like I really love what Linnea and Akiwa put out. It's so fun. We have so much in common. I mean, like our dogs have the same name, and
Who is that?
like Linnea and Akiwa.
Okay, I haven't heard of them
Are
yet.
you familiar? She makes really beautiful like YouTube films. Like I like her quality and her style. So yeah, that's definitely one that I like to peek at. And then I mean your page, like not to fangirl at all, but like honestly, I found your page when I had decided to build the rig, and I was like, oh, this is so cool, because I felt crazy. I'd never even seen another camper on a truck like what I have. I'm like, I feel like I could make this work, but then like finding what you're putting out and what you're sharing, I felt a little less crazy, to be honest. And it
Yeah, no,
really
that's
like
awesome.
even it's like, yeah, I feel like these are my people.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's
Mhm.
all about like building that community and then just inspiring and like sharing these rigs that I thought likewise. I thought I was the only one that was into these things. Lo and behold, there's a whole like thousands of people out there. So yeah, we are not alone, and it's cool to have that reassurance, and get
Yeah.
inspired by like rig builds like yours and
Mm.
techniques and tips and tricks. And that's part of why the podcast is here too, to keep sharing that story.
Yeah, right on. It's awesome. It's like, I love that there's this little niche community.
Yeah, it's super cool, and I'm stoked that we keep building it out. So solo traveling. I've seen, shockingly, maybe not shockingly, but I've seen kind of a renaissance of women traveling solo during this like time period, whether it's vans or trucks or car camping, whatever. It almost seems like a renaissance for women's ability, or just like taking that chance. It's really cool to see.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Yeah.
something that I don't know if it was going on beforehand with it. Maybe we just didn't see it without Instagram or YouTube and stuff. I've definitely noticed, like, I don't say the majority are women because I don't obviously have stats on anything, but it's remarkable the number of women out there traveling solo in their rigs. So have you been able to meet up with other ladies doing the same thing? I'm sure you have, but like, especially down in Mexico or just like around, and how have those experiences been?
Yeah. Honestly, yes, I for sure have met other women doing this, and I'm always inspired by them. Because,
Yeah.
I don't know, for the people that do live full time and that are traveling a lot, you do find that, like, at least in my experience, and I know in other people's as well, as I've talked to, it can be a little bit lonely out there. You kind of think you're going to get on the road and just like magically meet all these people,
Yeah.
which you do sometimes, but often you don't. So when you do, it can be very, very exciting. When I lived in Kenmore in Alberta, when I did my year in Alberta there, Kenmore, for those who don't know, it's like kind of near Banff. You're familiar.
Yep.
Absolutely stunning. Rocky Mountains. It's gorgeous. And we had an amazing van life community. We called it Vanmore because it was amazing. It's a little bit of a climbing town. So if you know climbers, they kind of honestly were like the trailblazers of van life, I think.
100%.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Runners, skiers, and like surfers.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So that was really cool. I mean, we had just an amazing community. I'd drive through the parking lot and, you could just roll down your window and be like, who wants to go climbing? And people would jump out of their rigs and pile in, and we'd all go. That was cool. And just like rig tours, seeing what other people built out. That was very cool. Yeah. And then Baja for sure. Met, several people. It wasn't like where I was. I usually go to Lemontana. I've been there for several times. This is my 4th trip down to Baja. So yeah, I mean, I met several people down there, but I would say like those Canmore days were for sure like the height of the like van life social scene.
Totally.
But I think, beyond that, like just the uniqueness of the rig, like I was mentioning earlier, a lot of the people I meet are just people that kind of come up and want to chat to me about what I'm driving.
Yeah.
I'm living out of it time and whatnot. So that's it's cool. It's cool that people are interested and curious to see what's going on inside.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is cool. And your rig is definitely inspirational, I'm sure. Yeah, the parking lot chats are on fire wherever you go. And that's cool. It's really cool when you get, especially like older people asking about it, like maybe like what we would consider like our elders, that are like not used to that. And they're like, whoa, this is so cool,
Yeah.
I always find the most joy from talking to those people they're kind of like not in tune with, what we're doing, and they're kind of like open to it though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. And I've also met, just like in those same circumstances, older, like older gentlemen, especially I can remember two off the top of my head that were so excited, and they said they had built campers back in like the 60s, 70s from their trucks, and like done, like you said, like surf trips and trips across the country and stuff. But, I just
That's
love to hear that too. That, that this isn't, such a new thing. That people were kind of trailblazing this back in the day as well. So those are cool stories to hear. You
Yeah,
can just see like the memories light up their eyes. Um,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. What? So in a small space, your hobbies and activities are limited, but what kind of hobbies and or activities do you kind of participate in or like pack with you when you go on a trip to kind of keep you entertained in those down times, those in between times?
Yeah, so climbing gear for sure. I haven't been climbing so much lately, but then I obviously have like all my riding gear. And then I don't have a ton of my fishing gear. I like to fly fish, so I bought all that. I have a little like cheating stick I call it, this little casting net. So that stuff's in there. What else is in there? It's like hiking stuff. I don't have like I don't have a bike or anything. My bike is back home on Salt Spring right now, and I would like to get that on here. I just didn't want to take it to Mexico with me. I just figured having that thing hang off the back was just like a little bit too much of a, lure, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
lure a bit. So when you went down to Mexico, did you drive straight from Canada? And then where did you end up in Mexico? And what are some of your kind of like favorite spots down there?
Yeah, so drove, left from DC and kind of just bombed straight down. Like I mentioned, I honestly, I got such horrible luck with the weather. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the storm, but there was a crazy storm that hit California. I was basically in the storm from southern Washington until Joshua Tree.
Cool.
Yeah, it was nasty. And then just beyond that, like getting down Baja, it was the wind. So I kind of didn't do as much exploring on the way down. I did a little bit more on the way back for sure. So kind of just bumped straight to La Ventana. Ended up in La Ventana. It is on the Sea of Cortez, so on sort of the east side of the peninsula. And I've been there a bunch before. I discovered it when I was kiting. So I used to kiteboard, and it's a big like kite hub. Used to be, full of windsurfers. Now kiting's kind of like taken over as a sport. So I just got a nice little community of friends down there, and it was a good place after that kind of, to be honest, heinous drive. I just kind of wanted to settle somewhere and be with friends and community. So that's what I did. But beyond, like, in terms of good spots, like my favorite spots, Bay of Conception is amazing. Playa Santis back, a little further north. This off the top of my head, those are. I never went down to, what was it? Playa Verde, I think. That's supposed to be amazing. So that is on the list
Yeah.
for my next Baja trip. But yeah, just to name a few. But La Ventana is amazing too. It's a super, super fun little community. And van friendly too. It's kind of Americanized. It's a little bit of a more built up little town, but still like a small little fishing village. So, I could still park on the beach and have a palapa for free. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. Dude,
yeah.
this
But then
CD
like,
player, 1 second.
yeah.
This camper has a CD player and it like is freaking out.
Oh,
There. Took the CD out. Which CD was it? James Taylor's Greatest Hits.
amazing. I grew up on that.
Yeah. That actually came standard in a different rig I had. The owner like left it in there. It's just lived in each camper I get. So but now it's will bother me no more.
All right.
So awesome. So yeah, Mexico, obviously the land, the Mecca in some aspects for our people. But now that you're kind of settling down for the next few months back up in Canada, do you have any future travel plans? And do you have any future rig plans? Or are you pretty happy with with where you're at with the rig and your travels?
Okay, let's see. Definitely a few things I want to do to the rig. Yeah, but nothing that's gonna happen, like, immediately. Like I mentioned, sort of like the fridge situation. I have a rudimentary bathroom situation right now, but I would like to improve on that at some point.
Yeah.
But what I have right now is working really fine. I really kinda hummed and hawed when I did this renovation. When I originally planned it, I planned to actually build it out even more and build in a little bathroom shower area. So that's still something that I kind of play with. But to be honest, I'm not completely sure that the truck can handle that extra weight. We're a little low on the hills, as I mentioned already, and that would just bring us down quite a bit lower. So, not sure if that's for this build or whatever build comes next. Um, yeah, and then in terms of upcoming trips, I think that at this point I'm gonna shoot to do something in the States in the summer. So I had driven the coast, well, sort of the coast on the way down. And then I went up through New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado on the way back. And that was my first experience seeing anything like, at least road trip wise, in the States other than the coast. And I was just blown away. I mean, the coast is beautiful, no offense. I actually lived in Santa Cruz for a little while. That was my first road trip adventure. I ended up in Santa Cruz and lived there for a while. Yeah, when I was 18 or so, and loved it. I just felt like it's so tough there to make van life work. It's so beautiful, but I always found it was really, really difficult to find spots to camp that weren't just like roadside pullouts on the side of the highway. So, and I kind of just like had that impression in my mind that that was what all of America was going to be like. I'm so sorry, but I was pleasantly surprised. So yeah, I just was blown away by just the access to BLM land and how beautiful it all was, and just the landscapes, the drastic variation in landscapes through that whole area. So kind of eager to get back there. I'd love to do another trip somewhere through the States and go even further south. I kind of want to see like Texas and Alabama. And I don't know.
Yes.
Like I'm just so curious. I want to do a big trip, and I know like it might not be as easy as it is in places like Utah, but I just want to go on a little adventure and see more of the culture you guys have down there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so much to see. There's so much to see in the world, but there's a lot to be said for like just kind of our little, North America between Mexico, America, and Canada. Definitely could spend a lifetime just exploring those regions and still be, still leave stones unturned. And I agree that yeah, locally it is a little bit harder to pull off fan life. That being said, it's totally possible, but it's a little bit of a different approach, I'd say, for this specific area, and probably most of Southern California up to the Bay Area. Land isn't as like open as it is elsewhere in the country. It's like especially in the good
Yeah.
spots, right? Like the mountains and the beaches, like it's harder. Then you go inland a little bit, like maybe the off 395, like Sierra Nevada range and stuff. It's definitely a little bit easier out there. But to each his own, and a lot of people make it work. So that's just them.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean it's so similar in BC too. Like you go to the big hubs, and closer to the coast you get in those little towns, it gets more and more difficult, but there's still tons of access. In other places, you just have to know where to go.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Well,
Mhm.
Dakota, it's been awesome catching up. If you want people to hear about your travels, what's the best way for them to follow along, even though you're maintaining the YouTube or the Instagram that much?
Yeah. There is no YouTube, but there may be
Oh
one.
yeah,
And I'm just Little Rig on Instagram, so little dot rig. So find
awesome.
me.
Um, well, totally appreciate this conversation. It was really cool to hear about your story and your upbringing and kind of your build out and your adventures. And I'm looking forward to following along and maybe doing a part two here in the near future.
Absolutely. Oh, it's been awesome chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Take care.